Guys, have you ever just thought about something and was like, wow, that's such strong evidence for God? Yep, because that's what David Rives does. He can literally look at anything that exists on Earth and spin that into God done it. So what do we have on the menu today?
Maybe it's the middle of summer, the heat and the humidity that triggers a little sigh. Or maybe you hate winter, scraping snow and ice off of your windshield while your fingers feel like they're going to get frostbite. Why? Is this weather really necessary? The truth is, the changing seasons make the world a much better place, and even winter serves the good of humanity. God's created our world perfectly for life, and the yearly cycle of seasons is one of many examples of His wisdom and His kindness.
Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, seasons. You heard it here first, folks. Seasons prove that God exists. Yes, I couldn't possibly think of what else could have caused seasons. No, of course not. It had to be God. Honestly, it just really feels like David could look at anything and say God did it. Literally everything is proof of God these days, isn't it? Anyway, let's see what he has to say about it.
First, let's compare Earth's weather and seasons with some other planets. Do you think the temperature swings are too extreme where you live? Maybe we experience a 30 or 40 degree swing in one 24-hour period during spring or fall, so you have to layer up. But imagine if you lived on Mercury, which of course you couldn't do. It could go from minus 280 degrees at night to 800 degrees during the day. Of course, Mercury only rotates about 3 times during 2 of its years. So day and night, well, that wouldn't happen every 24 hours like it does on Earth, which really only adds to the problems with living on Mercury.
Yes, indeed. Mercury gets extremely hot and extremely cold, depending on the side that is either facing the sun or away from it. Because it's so close to the sun, obviously it gets super hot, but because it doesn't have an atmosphere, it loses pretty much all of its heat at night, making it incredibly cold. But honestly, I'm not sure if this is really a fair comparison, since for Mercury you're talking about day-night cycles rather than seasons. Well, either way, I think providing an example of something that is worse than our current system is by no means signifying that our system is perfect. For example, I wouldn't say my life is perfect just because someone else has it worse than me. Look, I'm not saying that seasons on Earth is bad necessarily, but if I were God, I'd probably be able to design a better system that doesn't involve seasons. You know, have it always be perfect temperature so people wouldn't have to worry about dying of cold or heat. Is there any reason God needed to make seasons to begin with? Or better yet, just make it so humans are resistant to change in temperature, where any temperature within a certain range feels nice. Again, I'm not complaining about Earth's seasons, I just think it could have been easily designed better.
I don't know, maybe you would like Jupiter. It has virtually no seasons because the planet's only tilted on its axis at about 3 degrees. Or maybe you wouldn't, because you see, change is a good thing. Jupiter's Great Red Spot is a hurricane that has apparently been fuming for over 400 years. No other planet but Earth has suitable conditions. Even Mars, which people have been dreaming of colonizing since the 1950s, that would be horribly inhospitable at best, leaving anyone yearning for the comforts and ease of Earth.
Yeah, but now you're just listing out the rough conditions of other planets in general. What happened to talking about seasons? You can't even make an accurate comparison here because other planets don't have seasons in the same way that Earth does. Sure, if you want to talk about why you can't live on other planets in a general sense, there's plenty to talk about right here on Earth. We can only live on the surface, not underground, not in the sky, not in the sea or waters. If you think about it, there's only a limited amount of space we can even inhabit on Earth due to various conditions. And usually animals on Earth can only live within their own habitats. In that sense, because we can't live on most of the Earth, it's actually quite badly designed if you ask me. Well, that's going a bit off topic. Point is, if you want to talk about seasons, let's stick to talking about seasons.
Now scientists, well, they say it would be easier to colonize the ocean floor than to try to colonize Mars.
Well, you'd have to terraform Mars first of all, which would be a huge amount of effort, and that involves giving it a proper atmosphere as well. That, in addition to the fact that you'd have to space travel to Mars, of course conquering the seafloor would be easier. But of course, just because we can't live on Mars right now does not mean it doesn't have the potential to be better than Earth. Honestly, once we eventually do terraform Mars, it has very much potential to be a better planet to live on than Earth. But of course, we'd have to see.
Unlike the other planets, the Earth was specifically made to be inhabited. That's what Isaiah 45 tells us. God formed the Earth to be inhabited. And I sure am glad.
Okay, you're not even really talking about seasons anymore. Honestly, I didn't watch the whole video before writing this script, so I was expecting more than just what we got. Anyway, the Earth is a nice place, yes, but it seems perfect not because it was intentionally created this way. The observable universe has like 70 quintillion planets in it. Of course, at least one of them would be good enough to support life. And therefore, in order for humans to be around, we must have arisen within one of these habitable planets. And it's only that we're here can we even wonder about how Earth is suitable for life. If it were any other inhabitable planet, you wouldn't be there to wonder about it. Therefore, it's useless to think about how Earth is good for life, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to think about that. And of course, it didn't have to be Earth, it could have been any other habitable planet. There are plenty of them in the universe after all. Just in the Milky Way alone, there are potentially a few billion habitable planets.
So what purpose does winter serve? Well, we can look to the tropical regions of Earth around the equator and imagine those same conditions across the globe. Now, at first, this might sound really, really good, and it is for some people. You might think of rainforests teeming with life, but winter weather actually helps keep insects and mosquitoes in check, almost like a yearly reset.
Yeah, but why do these insects have to exist? Why did God have to invent mosquitoes, which is an annoyance at best and can spread deadly diseases at worst? Of course, that's not to say mosquitoes play no role in the ecosystem, they can be an important part of the food chain, but why did God have to make them suck blood and spread diseases? If mosquitoes weren't as annoying as they were, God wouldn't have to make winter in order to keep them in check, right? You're looking at this in a way too narrow-minded fashion. If mosquitoes and insects are a problem, what's the proper way to deal with them? Create winter so you only get rid of them for one season of the year? Surely that's not the best solution when you consider that God could have just gotten rid of or changed these insects entirely.
Also, many food crops need some cold weather to grow well, particularly wheat, which is a staple grain for many parts of the world. Fruit trees don't produce as well if there's no cooling period.
Yeah, but why? Why do these crops require a cooling period to thrive? Instead of making these plants require cooling temperatures and then making a cycle of seasons, why not just make it so these plants don't require varying temperatures to begin with? Look, the reality is that certain plants have adapted to Earth's seasons, so it uses it to be able to tell the time, such as when its fruits should be ripe or when is the optimal time to grow, etc. It's because Earth's seasons exist that plants have this feature, not the other way around.
Now, we always know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Winter, it's going to end in a matter of months. But we always know what's coming and how to prepare for each season. Well, the rebirth of most plant life, the return to the birds' songs, the explosion of color with spring flowers, that reminds us of God's promise of resurrection from death and of Jesus walking out of the tomb, bringing hope and new life for all who believe in him.
You've got to be kidding me. The regularity of the seasons is supposed to remind us of Jesus? How do you even make such a giant leap in logic? Absolutely ridiculous. Coming back to seasons though, you mentioned it yourself. The light at the end of the tunnel, and then you said winter only lasts a few months. So obviously people hate winter, and that's not just exclusive to winter. People tend to either hate winter or summer, and people die because of coldness and heat, so obviously this couldn't possibly be good design. Just make it constantly spring or fall, and then make everything else in nature and life adapt to it. It should be easy enough to do since, God is almighty and all-powerful. Anyway, the point is, you can't just look at everything and say that's perfect design and therefore God exists. There are clearly flaws in everything, including seasons, especially if you look further and think about how a better system could have been developed from scratch. And just because other planets have it worse doesn't mean ours is perfect. Ours, of course, is better for life, but not perfect. And if the universe were truly created by an intelligent designer, then everything should be perfect, not just good. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thank you to Fireshard, Alan Morton, Miss Fixit, Rick Clan, and Bomanium for their support on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next one.